The actors just voted to strike, and the nanny gave an awesome speech. The nanny. Oh, 6 minutes. Okay, so the strike has properly begun with the Screen Actors Guild, in addition to the Writers Guild. That's actually a huge deal. So for those of you who aren't fully caught up, the Writers Guild of America, which has striked many times before, has striked once again due to insufficient wages, and they want promises that they're not all going to be replaced with ChatGPT. They've now been joined by the Screen Actors Guild. What's going on here? Oh, this is coming right after Bob Iger, the CEO of Disney, said that writers and actors are not being realistic with strikes. He said this because he's evil and he hates you. He wants all people who aren't him to starve to death, and he wants to live on a castle on the moon, as is the case with all rich people who are dealing with labor disputes from non-rich people. It's very disturbing to me, he said, evilly. We've talked about disruptive forces on this business and all the challenges we're facing. The recovery from COVID, which is ongoing, it's not completely back. This is the worst time in the world to add to that disruption, Iger said. I understand any labor organization. Oh, you guys are so selfish, asking for money when we just dealt with COVID. Hey, hold on. Bob Iger bonuses. Target reward of up to $25 million for each year in his contract. Disney's Boomerang CEO Bob Iger to receive $27 million annually. Well, you know. He needs that for all the hard work that he does, okay? But all those writers who are barely employed and work like paycheck to paycheck. I understand any labor organization's desire to work on behalf of its members to get the most compensation and be compensated fairly based on the value they deliver. We managed, as an industry, to negotiate a very good deal with the Directors Guild that reflects the value the directors contribute to this great business. We wanted to do the same thing with the writers, and we'd like to do the same thing with the actors. There's a level of expectation that they have, and it's just not realistic. So that's interesting. They were able to easily arrive at a conclusion with the guild representing the directors, i.e. the significantly more powerful people in the hierarchy of a Hollywood production, you know. But all these little people, there's a level of expectation they have, and it's just not realistic. They're adding to the set of the challenges this business is already facing that is, quite frankly, very disruptive. Hold on really quickly. Disney quarterly profits. Just real quick here. Interesting. Walt Disney Company reported a 13% increase in Q2 earnings to $21.8 billion with a B. Well, you know, those are earnings, not profits. Maybe they didn't make any profits. Attendance at theme parks and resorts drove revenue this quarter. Disney Park Experience and Products Division increased its profits by 20% to $2.2 billion. Oh, so just their parks and resorts profited $2.2 billion. Where are the other profits? Saying they lost money in their Disney Plus subscriptions. By the way, I love an environment like a media production environment where Disney Plus can have 157.8 million subscribers, which is 1/2 of the population of the entire United States. And you have to keep in mind that people will have one subscription per household, meaning that, like, if you factor this in households, this is more than the total number of people in the United States. But somehow they're still, like, in trouble here because the streaming service industry for movie productions is so, like, economically dead-weighted towards profit accumulation at the very top that it's like a venture capital scheme. It works, but somehow they're still managing to make it not work. Who would have thought that an economic system predicated on infinite growth might be unsustainable for corporations that already have reached basically total market saturation? Oh, brings to mind all the other times in human history that a corporation has reached total market saturation and then faced trouble because new investors wouldn't get returns on their investment because they're already as big as they're going to get, so they had to do sneaky shit to try to get additional profits, like, say, Apple introducing planned obsolescence so that your phone will eventually break and be incredibly slow because they have it download programs that will make it run slower, thus forcing you to get a new phone, even if your phone used to work just fine. Didn't they stop doing that? There was a lawsuit for it. And I believe the lawsuit successfully won against them. However, they still do it. Sorry, I don't believe it. Okay, I had an iPhone 10 that worked just fine until all of a sudden it got incredibly slow and everything. It could barely load texts. It would go from like lightning fast all the time to I would try to open up like a text window in my messages app and it would take like 2 seconds to do it. I do not for a moment believe they stopped doing this because this is how they get people to buy new phones. If it wasn't for those disruptive programs, if phones stayed the same forever, just with changes for security updates, then phones they made like a decade ago would still work just fine today and people would be fine using them. Anyway, because they've reached, that's not exactly it. It was for battery life. Oh, was the lawsuit for battery life? Oh, right. Also another thing they do, because Apple would design their phones to prevent you from switching out the batteries, though they're changing this with EU legislation, because batteries do inevitably die over time. So they were making it so you couldn't switch out the batteries, guaranteeing you would have to buy a new phone when your battery inevitably dies, even if the entire phone is fine. But they make it so that you have to get a new phone. Again, when you reach total market saturation, the only way for your investors to get a profit on their investment is to continue to somehow get more market saturation than 100%. I think the companies claim they were slowing down people's phones to preserve battery life. Yep. Oh, I'm sure that my iPhone 10, which would last 12 hours on one charge, was taking 2 seconds to open a text field window because they were protecting me from the consequences of battery overuse. I'm fully confident. This scum. They're scum. We see this all over the place, by the way. Did you know that right now, there was an article about this yesterday. Did you know that right now, at this moment, American dairy farmers are producing so much milk that they're throwing it away? Because it would actually be more economically damaging to them and the companies that distribute their milk to put so much in the market, the price drops, than it would be for them to just throw it away, even though milk is still kind of expensive, like $4 a thing. If reflective of its actual price, it would be significantly lower, but they artificially keep it at a higher price by just throwing away excess milk. Highly efficient. And this is being done to maintain an artificially higher price for the milk because that makes more money. Remember, everyone already drinks milk. You can't get a higher market saturation on milk. The got milk happened decades ago. There's no new thing you're going to do that's suddenly going to make more milk get drank. So how do you make your market share go up? How do you reward investors? How do you incentivize investment?
It's like a weird dichotomy of both feeling really successful and really gratified, and then also wondering if you'll have health insurance 2 months from now.
I'm an actor and a writer. I've been on such shows as Barry, The Patient, stuff like that. I think what we've all seen is the shift to streaming, and unfortunately, our contracts were not negotiated for streaming. They were negotiated for network television.
Yep, remember, every time there's a big social or technological shuffle, the people on top will use that shuffle as an excuse to strangle existing contracts and labor relation policies to get more money. It's anytime there's a shakeup, the money always goes up. This is a fundamental property of capitalism. It's the accumulation of wealth at the top. And every time there's a big mix-up, like say, for example, the Great Depression, every time the pieces get settled again and everything gets built back up, there will be fewer banks than before. Every time there's a big mix-up, a bunch of people and things disappear, a smaller, more powerful group remains, and they make more and have more than before. Every time. Yeah, it is a feature of the system, and it happens basically every time, with like very few exceptions. Hey, what's happening to the internet right now? 25 years ago, the internet was a bunch of weird forums spread out for a bunch of different interests. Now the entire internet is like 4 or 5 websites that everyone posts on and shares screenshots with other ones. And somehow, despite the people who run these websites being incredibly powerful and incredibly wealthy, Twitter can't seem to turn a profit. Elon Musk is running into the ground. Reddit is destroying their API access system and charging a boatload for it. So they can sell it off in public trading. Somehow there was a shuffle All the pieces got mixed around, and then you blink and miss it, and then all of a sudden, whoa, 5 companies control everything. There's a ton of money in the system, but somehow there's none to distribute, and the people on top are very wealthy. Like, every time.
So in some instances, we don't have protections on streaming in the way that we have protections on network television. And so what you have are situations that now occur where we're not being compensated fairly. And so a residual is something when the show re-airs somewhere or it gets sold to another outlet, we get a check. Sometimes those checks are pretty good. Maybe you get $1,000 one day in the mail that you weren't expecting. Sometimes those checks are literally 1 cent.
Remember in BoJack Horseman where the entire premise is that he was an actor in an old, like, corny 90s TV show, and he was able to live like a millionaire for the rest of his life off of the residuals that he got from that single show? Nowadays, an actor will, like, literally bounce project to project, and because residuals don't factor in for streaming services, that, like, you get the money you get for that project, and that's it, okay? A lot of actors don't make much money. The actors that make a ton of money are the ones that have so much, like, name recognition value that, like, their presence in a movie will cost 25 million or whatever, you know? Like, sure, if Will Smith is in a movie, okay, he'll get paid. If Scarlett Johansson's in a movie, she'll get paid. But if you're just, like, a regular actor who does good work, even a mid-tier prominent one, you know? There's a very real chance that the shift to streaming has effectively meant that, like, working on a show that gets broadcast exclusively through streaming is a one-and-done deal for you. Like, you don't even get residuals from it. And what that means is that people can't coast between jobs anymore. A lot of actors no longer have the ability to do a good job. It's really popular, they get paid well, and they live on that for like a year or two while looking for another good job. Now they're like gig workers. They're like Uber drivers. They have to scramble between jobs as frantically as they can because they don't get any kind of cushion to last. It's the fucking gig economy. It's always the fucking gig economy.
Biggest thing I was on a show on Netflix called Bonding.
And a reminder that none of this is because the money's not there, okay? More people are watching TV, more people are watching movies in total through streaming than ever before. This is not a product of like there was less demand for the things being produced at all. There's so much money here. Bob Iger is getting paid tens of millions, and that's just flat salary per year, not even counting his stock options. There are tons of people making tons of money. They're just all at the top.
My show was originally like an independent series, and then Netflix bought it and put it on their platform, which was amazing. And more people saw it than I ever anticipated, like millions and millions of people. The way the contracts were set up, because the budget was so low, was that there was no residuals involved in it.
It sounds like you made nothing in residuals. Like you didn't make a dime in residuals?
I didn't make a single dollar in residuals for that show. As residuals are going down and as these shows are being pulled off platforms or not aired, actors aren't receiving any residuals from them.
Mm-hmm. Also, there have been sometimes for tax purposes or to save on hosting money, they'll literally just like remove shows or movies from a platform. Not even like Netflix no longer has the right to show Fooly Cooly or whatever, which I'm still mad about. But like, yeah, we made this show 2 years ago, but we're just taking it off. And now it doesn't exist online anymore. The only place it existed was on that streaming service. And now it's just gone. The only way it still exists in any capacity is if somebody ripped the file and then uploaded it to a torrent site. In other respects, it literally does not exist anymore. Yeah, the HBO cartoon purge, where they got rid of a ton of cartoons, yeah.
Which leads them to not be able to often make their health insurance.
So health insurance is obviously a difficult thing when you're in a business where your income is completely unpredictable.
I was a series regular on NCIS Los Angeles. I played Nell Jones for 11 network television seasons. So yeah, I've done a lot of TV. And in December of 2022.
Wearing this hat is like SoCal phrenology. It's SoCal physiognomy. It's like a part of the skull.
I received a letter from SAG letting me know that I no longer qualified for health insurance. What was the work for? You know, my labor lines the pockets of these executives.
Based.
And to what benefit?
I know this wall.
Right? Okay, they're still profiting off of my performance, and I can't even go to a GP if I have a sore throat. That's not okay.
I think the perception.
The idea of being on an NCIS show for 11 seasons and not having health insurance is like wild. That's like insane, you know? The idea of an environment where you can be stopped on the street because people recognize you, but like you don't, like this is like, it's like, yeah. Neither can a lot of workers too. Yeah, to be clear, what they're talking about here is a plight shared by most workers in America, but I think it's particularly egregious in this case because with actors in this environment, the schism between the work they do, the profits it makes others, and what they get for it is particularly severe, right? Like, labor exploitation is a factor in capitalism for everyone, but this is like a very specifically, I think, like exacerbated element of it, you know? Not to say they're suffering more than other people. Just, look, I'm glad that actors are speaking up about this. They are literally the most visible people in America. And if anyone needs to speak up about labor rights, it is the visible people, the people who will be listened to.
Is that performers who work at a professional level are all successful. I think that has to do with how our industry is glamorized and romanticized in the media. And I've been lucky to work a lot across different mediums. But I have a full-time job as a flight attendant because that's less stressful than worrying year after year about making my minimum health insurance qualification minimums for union health insurance.
I have another full-time job. I'm a writer. So I couldn't be an actor. I couldn't continue to be an actor and pay for my life in LA and have health insurance if I wasn't also in the WGA. I sometimes say that writing supports my acting hobby.
I was very fortunate to land the job that I got right out of school. It's not the norm. I'm aware of that. I'm aware of my privilege, and I'm very grateful for the opportunity that I've had. But it's not the norm. You know, I have a friend who is an incredible actor, was cast on a Marvel Disney Plus show as a prominent actor's mom, and she made $500 from her time on that show. That is just not sustainable. You cannot sustain life on $500.
All we're asking for is for the ability, not even to get rich. It's for the ability to...
And keep in mind, by the way, like $500, even if that's just like a one-time appearance in one episode, showing up for a major production, even for a brief appearance, means so much work beforehand. Like you like, even if you just briefly show up or whatever, even if you just briefly interact this year, you're just very quickly shown you are immersed in like think of all of the pre-production and like bureaucracy and everything that you have to go through in like a Marvel production before they'll let you anywhere near a camera. You know what I mean? It's not like showing up for a student film or something.
be able to do our jobs.
We should be able to afford to live a life in the city where the work is taking place.
Good luck with that.
Let's just take care of this now. Like, hey, you know what? If we make a show that costs $10 million on network, we're gonna pay you the same money as if we make a show that costs $10 million on a streamer. If I'm a waiter and I work at a really nice restaurant, and I'm a waiter and I work at a not as nice restaurant, the minimum is still the same. It's still the same. We can't be going into every job literally not knowing how much money we're gonna make. We have to take away the ability from the AMPTP and from the studios of backing us into a corner and making us accept deals that are A, not fair, but B, against the spirit of what's already been negotiated.
This negotiation
Streaming shows are not treated the same as network shows. Yeah, like the ad model has changed, but the difference is people pay a subscription fee. I feel like, man, I don't know how much like the innate cost is of hosting servers. I wish stuff like this was more public, because I don't know what the like if you're running a TV show, how much does it cost to broadcast the television like electricity signal to the entire country versus how much does it cost to host the servers to live stream to everyone, Netflix or whatever. I don't think it's that much, like the current cost relative to like Disney money. I don't think it's that much. So in terms of like payout per person, what the average person watches versus them paying what, $10 a month in a subscription fee compared to how much they would have gotten from ad buyouts before, I feel like there's just so much money in this system and people aren't getting paid. And what viewerships are we talking here? Like Mandalorian view numbers. That was a big streaming show. 1.1 viewing minutes as of the 3rd episode of season 3. What about like views though? Viewing minutes? I guess that's what a streaming service would care about, right? Viewing minutes? Yeah, I guess so. What is Outer Banks and why does it have the most viewing minutes? The Last of Us in 8 episodes had 1,011 million, so 1.01 billion viewing minutes. It's like an adventure series?
Negotiation is consequential. If we do not get what we're asking for, there is just going to be continued erosion, right? It's the erosion of compensation, residuals, the existential threat of AI, which is so real, right? We're right there.
And what I want for all actors is a sense that our union is fighting for us in a way that will keep us here and that will continue to protect us in a really long-term thinking type of way.
We have to get comfortable advocating for.
There's another really big threat to like any kind of labor advocacy in this particular field, and it's the same reason why businesses like it when there's high unemployment, because people are much less likely to quit out of frustration if they know there's a bunch of people ready to take their job if they leave. And that's because for every actor or writer in Hollywood, there are 10 wannabe actors or writers. So you can like treat the current crop of actors and writers terribly and they can all leave, but there's another army of them who are more desperate, who are more poor, who are willing to come in and do the best they can. And by maintaining a basically you have like an infinite army of scabs who are always available because you get to work in Hollywood, who can basically undercut like any existing labor advocacy. Marx called unemployed people the reserve army because they keep wages low. Yeah, corporations love unemployed people. They love unemployed people. What's this?
Because they are so big, they actually work directly with a number of ISPs to install their own hardware. These boxes, called Open Connect appliances, at either exchange points or even within the ISP's facilities themselves. Holding up to 280 terabytes of video each. These come preloaded with close to the entire Netflix library. So what this means for you, the consumer...
Oh, so they work directly with the ISP and they basically just have like hard drives with all the Netflix library that are preloaded on the ISP's like network? Wait, so does this mean that maintaining their streaming catalog costs like nothing? It would cost like nothing because working through the ISP lines, you would like that would be literally as cheap as you could get it done. You wouldn't have to host all of the... Okay, cool. That's great to know. Okay, cool. So the process of maintaining a streaming network costs like basically nothing relative to the amount of money these companies have. And the reason why like nobody's making any money except for the people on top is purely spite and hatred for their common man, and it has nothing to do with the economics of the situation. Okay, that's cool. That's great. No, this is just cost saving. It still costs money to build a store. I know it doesn't cost nothing. I'm talking about on the metric of money available to these systems. I couldn't afford to do it, but Disney? Like, I feel like maintaining this network is not a significant proportion of what it costs to maintain all this compared to the relative cost and proportion of previous distribution systems. Guys, remember when, in order for people to see a movie at home, they had to buy a DVD that had to be physically distributed to stores? I don't know. Things are so much easier now. It used to be like you had to ship millions of boxes with a disc or with a tape in it across the country. And then it was like, or I guess it's purely been like electrical signals to the TV lines, and now it's just like data packets online. The cost per view has only ever gone down. I should just send Vosh an email. This is complicated. I'm not going to understand it.
For ourselves, our benefits, our access to pensions, our minimums, everything is degrading. It's not keeping up with inflation. And if we don't take a stand, there's no way the life of a working, stable performer is going to be a viable lifestyle anymore. We're going to lose it if we don't fight for it.
Sheesh. AI is going to make this so much worse. Yeah, I guess it already is, right? The future of movies is a bunch of stunt actors who are paid $5 a production, who have like green masks on so that dead famous actors can have their faces digitally projected and AI molded onto them. Yeah, I don't know what that means, Rave Dubin.
It's really important
What is this?
that this negotiation be covered, because the eyes of the world, and particularly the eyes of labor, are upon us. What happens here is important, because what's happening to us is happening across all fields of labor by means of when employers make Wall Street and greed their priority, and they forget about the essential contributors that make the machine run. We have a problem, and we are experiencing that right at this moment. This is a very seminal hour for...
I agree. She talks slowly. I agree with her, though. I agree completely. Is this why historically socialist movements were so prevalent in Hollywood? Look, there's just a lot of gay lefties who work in art, okay? Actors walked out of the Oppenheimer UK premiere just before the screening to join the SAG strike. Oh, based. Actors who worked in Oppenheimer? Nice. Some prominence. Unfortunately, they're off to write their picket signs, director Christopher Nolan announced. Oh, okay, I don't like Christopher Nolan to begin with. I read this in a negative way. I'm reading this negatively. Oh, they're off to go write their signs. Maybe he means it like, unfortunately, they have to do this. Nolan is part of the WGA. Yeah, but you can be in the WGA and be one of those people who thought they should have like conceded, right? It's not like he needs that money. Like, this doesn't affect him. I don't like Christopher Nolan. I don't think positively of him. What he did wrong, I have no idea. I know this is like a Reddit reason, but it's from the Dark Knight trilogy. It's literally that reason. All three of those movies were like really reactionary in ways that feel like they betrayed the biases of the filmmaker. Like, I know there was literally just a Twitter... oh, did Nolan join the picket line? Oh, he did. That's nice. I still don't like him, but I'm glad. Okay. So that frames his statement less negatively. I'm happy to hear that. Oh, this is from May 8th. Okay, this was back before when it was just the WGA, not the current. Okay. So, well, okay. Well, it's indicative of some degree of support. I still don't like him. Okay, but hear me out. He's actually a good cinematographer. Yeah, he's a great cinematographer. I'm not getting him on that. Mostly the writing thing. Nice, Ken Munger. Another clip from the strike. Are you going to see Oppenheimer? Yes.
About the protection, the preservation of the opportunity for such a thing as a middle-class artist to function, to exist in a changing ecosystem. We know that the money is there. We know that there's enough pie to go around, but we don't.
This is great audio. I guess this is what you get from a protest.
We're not seeing our share. And if there is no path to the middle class for actors or for writers, well, you can think what that's going to do to what we get to digest as an audience. Everything is going to come from people that can afford to persevere regardless of how they're doing in the union, or how they're doing rather in the industry.
I can't deal with this audio. I agree with everything that he said. Thank you. I like this audio much better. Also, I like looking at these pretty people. Sexy backs. Women's backs are such an underrated feature of their bodies. A muscular back in a woman is so good. It's so aesthetic.
Earlier this morning, a deal that would ensure a sustainable future for the acting profession. But despite our team's efforts, the AMPTP has remained steadfast in its commitment to devaluing the work of our members. Actors deserve a contract that reflects the changes that have taken place in the industry. Unfortunately, the current streaming model has undercut performers' residual income, and high inflation has further reduced our members' ability to make ends meet. Additionally, industry expectations around self-tape auditions mean performers are bearing casting costs that were once the responsibility of producers.
Damn, really?
To complicate matters further, actors now face an existential threat to their livelihoods with the rise of generative AI technology. We've proposed contract changes that address these issues, but the AMPTP has been uninterested in our proposals. Because of this, the board has determined that union members should withhold their labor until a fair contract can be achieved. A strike is an instrument of last resort. We've tried for 4 weeks to reach a deal with the AMPTP, and unfortunately, they have left.
Man, I really hope something comes of this. Like, this is so important. Has Hassan gone over and given, like, pizza to them yet, now that the SGA has joined the WGA? Or SAG has joined the WGA? Yeah, well, the real money that Bob Iger makes isn't in his salary. It's in his stock options, too, so it doesn't even fully represent it. He said he was probably going to do so tomorrow. Based. I wish I could join him. Well, not join Hassan, but I wish that I could go and see the strikes directly myself, you know. Being in LA does put you at the center of the action, but the cost of that is that you have to be in LA, which is an unbearable nightmare that I will not return to. We have to send in Everett Claire? Yeah, God, I wish. What'll happen if the strike fails? Life just gets worse, you know? For what it's worth, though, I do believe in a degree of, not like inevitability when it comes to historical materialism, but I do think that, like, the model of media production that the big studios want right now is not sustainable. It's like with fascism, you know? I don't think that fascism is guaranteed to fail, like, in every way that we want it to, but I do think that a fascist government will inevitably collapse and give way to something better, purely because it's just not in line with human need. It's self-defeating. And I think the same is the case with the model the studios want. So I think that eventually something's going to break, but ideally I would like it to, you know, break through coordinated labor action and not through some other kind of thing. That would be nice, ideally, you know. Nice, Ken Monger. That's up to you, Ken Monger. Do you think the death of legacy media was a good thing? What do you mean by legacy media? Do you mean like radio or TV or something? I don't know. I mean, I don't know. It's complicated. It's really complicated. Newspaper also. Well, I mean, it's just, there are benefits and complications to having immediate, easy access to everything, you know? I don't know.